Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country or in the entire world. We do have a lot of international attendees today. So thank you all for joining us for this very special represented session called Powerful Strategies for Converting Asphalt Shingle Leads to Metal Sales. This is being presented by one of our fantastic MetalCon 2023 presenters, Todd Miller. Todd Miller is the president of AIA Industries, and he is representing this session, which was already presented in 2023 at MetalCon in person. I also would love to announce that on February 21st, 2 weeks from today, we will be having an additional session, this one presented by the MCA, an introduction to ANSI/MCA FTS-1 test methods for wind load resistance of flashing used with metal roofing systems. It might be a mouthful, but trust me, it's a very important session, and anyone who deals with any codes, this is a good one to watch. I'm also happy to announce that coming up in March, we have our very first 2024 MetalCon and MCA Future Leaders presentation, and this will be on employment in the metal industries, maximizing your experience. That one will be presented by Samuel Gray of Metallic Products. Just in case you're not aware, which I'm sure you all are, MetalCon is going to be in Atlanta, Georgia this year, from October 30th through November 1st. We hope you all will be able to join us. And again, make sure you keep your eyes open on the registration page. It's going to be going live in springtime. Finally, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can submit any questions into the chat box and I'll be the one to help you out there. If you would like to receive a certificate of attendance for today and receive AIA credit if you are an AIA member, please just fill in a very brief questionnaire at the end of this survey, at the end of this webinar. That is simply your first name, last name, and very pertinent information for your certificate of attendance and to get that certificate to you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Todd. Todd, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much, Kaylin, and I appreciate the reminder that MetalCon 2024 will be here before we know it, and looking forward to seeing everybody at that, that's for sure. So let me get my screen shared here, make sure we got everything good. I think we're good. Well, thank you. Thank you again, and I want to welcome everyone to attending this webinar called Powerful Strategies for Converting Asphalt Shingle Leads to Metal Sales. My name is Todd Miller. I'm president of AIA Industries. I sort of grew up in the industry, spent my whole career in it. The company was started by my father back in 1980. We are a manufacturer of specialty residential metal roofing, including several brands, Classic, Castle and Irons, and Green American Home. I'm currently blessed to serve as president of the Metal Roofing Alliance, and I am a past chair and currently on the executive committee of Metal Construction Association. So above all, what I think I've really developed a passion for over the years is helping contractors achieve ever-growing levels of success with metal roofing, because I believe that's what it will take to continue to grow and see the ongoing success of our industry. In fact, our entire sales team here at AIA Industries is committed to that goal, because we know that we are only successful, and this goes for our entire industry, we're only successful when you, the contractors who are marketing and selling our products, are successful. And that kind of brings us to where we are today. Looking forward to doing this again. As Kaylin said, this is a presentation I gave live at MetalCon 2023. I was really blessed, and I felt like it was a great affirmation of this content when a couple days after MetalCon ended, someone who sat in on this presentation told me that he was able to immediately put some of the things I was suggesting into place in his business and in his sales efforts, and he did turn a $15,000 asphalt roof lead into a $46,000 metal roof sale. And that just happened like literally a few days after MetalCon last year. So I could not have asked for better affirmation than that. So thank you sincerely for taking some time with me today. I take your time seriously. I'm going to try to keep things moving and use your time as valuably as I possibly can. And at the end, we'll have some questions, or as Kaylin said, you can type them into the chat as well. And we'll either pick those up as we go along, or we'll pick them up at the end. So I suspect most of you are involved currently probably in doing some sort of sales of metal roofing, and that's fantastic. So I'm curious how many of you, when you do get a lead for a metal roof, immediately have some indication from the prospect that, maybe price is going to be a concern for them. It might look a little different from lead to lead, but I think it happens pretty regularly. I mean, maybe you generate a lead that really has been thinking about an asphalt shingle roof, and you're trying to work them through to help them see if the value of metal is important to them. I think that today's presentation is going to give some good ideas for you. Or again, maybe you generate a lead and the first thing they say is something along the lines of, I really like the idea of a metal roof, but I'm not sure I can afford one. That probably happens all the time, gee, if I had to guess. So again, we've got some good information for you today. I mean, obviously, we all love it when the consumer shows up like this lady here and shows up with cash in hand and says, I'm ready to buy a metal roof and I got all kinds of money to do it with. But fact is, most consumers really aren't to that point. So what we're talking about here today is ways of taking perhaps a more nebulous lead, a more uncertain lead, or, really more what we call, I guess, a top of funnel lead. And even that lead that is fully intending to probably buy an asphalt shingle roof and turning it into a successful and profitable metal roof sale. So it's interesting. You've maybe heard these numbers, but according to a recent study commissioned by the Metal Roofing Alliance, metal is at an 18% share of the residential roofing market. That's an all-time high. And that certainly sounds great. It's a great indicator for those of you who are building your businesses around metal. But here's what I find interesting about that number. The MRA has been tracking these market share numbers for a lot of years now. And while over that time, the share of metal has increased from 2 or 3% up to 18%, that was for 2022, the asphalt shingle industry numbers haven't really changed that much. Yeah, it varies a little bit from year to year, but numbers for the asphalt shingle industry really have kind of stayed in that 78 to 80, 83% range the entire time I've been in the industry, my 40 plus years. So imagine that, we talk about the share of metal growing, but whose share is shrinking? From all appearances, according to these numbers, it's not the market share of the 30,000-pound gorilla asphalt shingles that is shrinking. So again, think about it. Metal has gained significant market share, but asphalt really hasn't changed all that much. So how can that be? And I must confess, when I look at those numbers, I struggle a little bit to understand them. But here's what those numbers show when you really dig into them. The market share of other premium roofing materials like wood, slate, tile, the market share of those numbers has dropped, or of those products has dropped considerably over this time, almost to the point of where they don't even track them anymore. They're down in that 1% range. So while certainly there may be regional differences, the numbers show that metal's market share gain has come largely at the expense of other higher end roofing materials, not at the expense of asphalt. Now, chances are, as I say that, you're probably thinking to yourself, but I replace asphalt roofs all the time, so how can this be? Well, the numbers again are looking at things from a national level, but the reality is asphalt market share has changed very little. So perhaps a lot of those folks you have sold, converted to metal, had metal not existed, they would have converted to some other higher end of roof, such as a polymer composite roof, a wood shake roof, a tile roof, things like that. The reality is, again, that market share of asphalt hasn't changed all that much. So here we are today, all these years later, and the reality is there's very little additional market share that metal can gain at the expense of those other higher end materials like wood and tile and slate. those numbers are already pushing zero. They can't go to a negative market share, right? And to boot, as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of polymer products coming on the scene also, that are also trying to take market share, what little market share those other products still have. So here's the bottom line, the way I look at it. If we as the metal roofing industry are going to continue to grow and gain share, we have to make strides at the expense of asphalt shingles. We simply must get better at introducing and selling the value proposition offered by quality metal roofing if we're going to continue to grow and gain market share for metal. And to boot, recent studies and projections are continuing to show that due to changes in the economy and pressures being felt by consumers, contractors felt a little bit of a pinch in 2023 at selling higher end, higher ticket home improvement items. And a lot of the statistics are saying that's probably going to continue well into 2024. And for the most part, those higher end products would include quality metal roofs. Now, the good news is that after we get through this little bit of a tough spot right here, other studies or those same studies are showing and projecting a huge boom in home remodeling, especially in higher end products, starting probably later in 2024 or early 2025. But for the immediate future, at least, this is another reason that we all need to get better at helping homeowners understand the value of metal roofs for their properties. A little bit of a side note here that I think is kind of interesting, talking about studies and trends. One trend in home improvement right now is toward projects where the homeowner plays a role in the work. And I think that's pretty interesting because it saves the homeowner money, makes them feel vested or involved in the project. And for the contractor, it may reduce the amount of skilled labor he needs on the job or the amount of labor. So it's easy to see how homeowner involvement could take place in something like interior painting or drywall sanding or finishing work on cabinets. Maybe a little bit harder to figure out how that could work with roofing, but there may be ways. I mean, what if in some cases your homeowner is of a metal roof customer in particular is a fairly savvy customer, and maybe they do their own tear off of their roof. Maybe they agree to do their own yard cleanup at the end of each day in exchange for a discount. There could be all kinds of benefits to your company from that, and also for your own tight labor pool. Again, get the homeowners invested, allow them to save some money, decrease the needs on your own labor. I think it's very interesting to think about. So here's another aside. John Burns Research and Consulting. Look them up online or on LinkedIn. These folks have great information as far as what's happening in construction and also in remodeling. They understand the remodeling industry extremely well, and they regularly post lots of good free information. So check them out. Eric Finnegan in particular with their company works a lot with the home improvement sector. So be sure to check out and see what they're doing. So I want to get back to the topic at hand. Let's look at the market share of asphalt shingles. It indicates that, the pure market share of asphalt shingles being in that upper 70% range certainly indicates that the vast majority of the re-roofing leads that you're getting are from homeowners who probably have asphalt shingles right now. And I'm just guessing this, but I suspect, I'm not sure if there's someone that we can mute here. There's a little bit of background noise.
Working on that.
Okay. And oddly enough, I've got someone showing up with my name on their picture, but I don't know who that is. Anyway, so I want to get back on the topic at hand here. And, I'm just guessing that if you go out and you ask the folks who have asphalt shingles now what they will someday replace those shingles with, they're probably going to say, oh, I'll probably go back with the same thing I have now. Is there really anything different? Or maybe if they are already in the camp of metal, they might say, well, I'd really like a metal roof, but honestly, I'm not sure I can afford one. And or furthermore, if you go ahead and dig a little bit deeper and you ask them who will replace their roof, they're probably going to say something that sounds like, oh, I've got a roofing guy, perhaps someone from past experience or maybe a friend or relative. They probably have someone in mind who is their roofing guy. And much as I hate to tell you this, chances are their roofing guy is not you. So here's your challenge as the guy selling metal. How do you interrupt their plans? How do you get them to see the value of metal and see a metal roof in their future? How do you get them to want to work with you instead of with their roofing guy, who I'm sure is a very nice guy? Fortunately, we have lots of possibilities along the way to help them see the light. But a lot has to do with your scripting from the very first contact you have with that prospect. After you get through that initial scripting, it then continues with the scripting of having a professional sales presentation. So let's start a little bit with scripting from when you first interact with that homeowner. This could be on the phone when they call in, or maybe it's when you follow up to call them from an internet lead, or maybe you even meet them at a home show. But before we get started talking about that scripting, I do want to ask you one other thing. Who do you have doing this phone work for you? Who do you have doing the home show work for you? And I want to encourage you, if you don't already have one, you really need what I call a professional appointment setter, someone trained to, in essence, sell the appointment. Someone who can help that homeowner understand why they can't get a price for a new roof over the phone, and why they really have to have one of your sales consultants come over to the home to visit with them, review the project, ask a few questions, and if appropriate, make a proposal to them. Now, in my experience, a lot of contractors are still letting their salespeople set their own appointments. And I got to tell you, I think that's a bad mistake. Now, I know that what I'm about to say is at the risk of offending some of you, but in reality, most salespeople are lazy. And frankly, I include myself in that. And as proof of that, I thought, oh, I'm going to try and Google and find a picture of a lazy salesperson. I'll never find one. Yeah, there's millions of them out there. And the reason, what happens because we are kind of lazy, we're going to do all we can to disqualify a lead so that we don't have to go spend more time with someone who isn't a good lead. So I, the lazy salesperson, need a professional appointment setter doing that work for me. Someone trained at even taking a very nebulous lead and turning it into someone who is truly interested and even looking forward to meeting with the company's professional salesperson. So let's move on. Your appointment setter's first question, once the homeowner has expressed interest in a new roof, maybe even they're thinking of roof repair, their first question to that person is really very simple. It's this: how long do you plan to stay in your home? Again, very simple. How long do you plan to stay in your home? Now, this is where if that prospect says anything that sounds like maybe 8 or 10 years or longer, you can introduce them to the idea of metal. So assuming that is the case, and they say, I'll probably live here 10 years, or maybe they say, they're going to have to carry me out of this house. You hear that every once in a while. The appointment setter says, wow, that's a pretty long time. You know what? A lot of our customers who intend to stay in their homes for that long end up choosing a longer term roofing product. Would you be interested if we bring some longer lasting roof options to take a look at when you come visit you? These may cost a little bit more upfront, but for folks who stay in their homes that long term, they end up saving a lot of money with these products. In most cases, their answer is going to be something like, well, sure, that could make sense to talk about that. And suddenly you have created a metal roof lead out of that asphalt lead. But I want you to think back. If you noticed, when I was going through that scripting, I didn't mention metal, did I? What I said was a longer lasting product. And generally at this point, I would not mention metal unless the conversation goes in a direction where you simply have to. And here's the problem with mentioning metal. Because of the way we, the metal industry, have started to change the industry and we've started to grow market share, every roofing contractor out there is saying that they do metal roofs. So if you say that you're going to bring metal roofing to them, their reaction is probably going to be something like, oh, the other guy said that too. Instead, just simply say we have some long-lasting roofing products that a lot of our customers, much like yourself, are choosing. Would it make sense for us to bring some information on them? Now, from there, your appointment setter can go on to learn, excuse me, your appointment setter can go on to learn all they can about the prospect, and then that information that they learn does get passed along to the salesperson, which helps that salesperson be even more successful at their job. So a professional appointment setter, again, will have a script for all this, but they're going to ask some things like the following that are going to all result in some great information for your salesperson. They're going to ask some things like, how long have you lived in your home? Have you replaced your roof before? What type of roof do you have now? Do you know if you have just one layer or multiple layers of roofing? What concerns do you have with your roof today? Do you like the aesthetics of your current roof and how it looks on your home? Are you planning any other exterior remodeling that the new roof will need to match? Do you think that your current roof might be impacting the energy efficiency or overall health of your home in any negative ways? The appointment setter is going to be very empathetic in their responses. They're going to make them feel cared about and listened to, but they're also going to make it very clear that the things that they are asking for are well within the wheelhouse of the work your company does. And above all, they're going to plant seeds of why that person needs to talk to your company. Again, that appointment setter's job is to sort of sell the appointment. Again, the appointment setter wants to help the prospect understand why they need you to come out of your house. Now, people today are strongly motivated by this thing that kids call FOMO. The first time I heard that, I was like, what? But FOMO, the fear of missing out. If your appointment setter can help that prospect realize that they're going to learn things from your salesperson that other companies aren't even talking about, then they will be looking forward to the appointment with your salesperson, and you will become the gold standard by which they compare all other contractors. You do this right, they are not going to go out and sign a contract with somebody else because they definitely want to talk to you before they do that. So one of the biggest things that you want to have them anticipating when your salesperson arrives is the attic inspection. Believe it or not, the typical roofing contractor is still not inspecting the homeowner's attic. You want to talk about during the appointment process because it sets your company above other companies. An ideal way to introduce the idea of an attic inspection is right after they probably tell you that, oh, their current roof is doing okay, more or less. So your response to that is something like, or your appointment setter's response is, well, that's great. I'm glad to hear you're not dealing with leaks and other problems. Now, has anyone taken a look up in your attic and done some investigative moisture and ventilation readings to make sure there aren't hidden leaks or other weird things or damages going on in the attic? Chances are they're going to say, well, no one really has asked me about that. And that's when the appointment setter says, oh, really? Well, that's definitely something we will want to do. Can you be sure to have your access to your attic hatch opened up or clear so that we can go up in the attic when we visit? Again, the goal here is to firmly present the idea that they need to have you come to their house because you're going to discuss things, you're going to look at things, you're going to monitor things that no one else has really even talked to them about. remember that FOMO, fear of missing out. You want to give that to them. Doing this not only helps set the appointment, but it helps reduce your number of cancellations and no-shows dramatically. So I have one other thing that I want you to think about before we start reviewing the in-home sales presentation. If someone asks you as a metal roofing contractor what your competition is, what do you say? You don't really need to answer that, because I'm going to tell you how I want you to think about it going forward. Your competition is not asphalt shingles or even someone else's metal roof or even a tile or slate roof. You need to think of your competition as being that homeowner's next new car or other vehicle, or maybe some other major investment. Fact is, premium metal roofs are being sold every day at about the same price that that homeowner would typically pay for their next new car. If you have an $80,000 car, you probably have a house where the quality metal roof's going to cost around $80,000. And think about this too. How many of your customers have more vehicles than they do adults in their home? They're accustomed to paying for vehicles. Maybe in a two-adult household, they each have daily drivers. Maybe they have a truck or a summer fun car that they have, or that Jeep they take out in the countryside once a year. Or maybe they have a boat or an RV. I think I'm right on that. Chances are that each of those vehicles, when they bought it, cost about the same as what that quality metal roof is going to cost on that home. So the way I look at it, when you ask them to buy a metal roof, you're really asking them to put off their next new car for perhaps a few years. You're asking them to keep on driving their current car, which is likely perfectly fine, for a few more years. Or maybe you're asking them to add one more payment now. Maybe they don't have a car payment right now. Normally they would. So you're substituting that with a roof payment. And I believe that with a masterful and professional sales presentation, it's well within your ability to do that. Don't try to tell me that you can't help them see that the value of a metal roof isn't worth putting off that new car for a couple more years. That new car that loses 30% of its value as soon as they drive it off the lot. And then when they go to trade it in, is worth 30% of what they paid for it. So if there's one thing that I encourage you to do that you really ought to do, is just this one simple mind shift change. Think of yourself as selling that kind of value, the value of a new car, and you will find that you can turn lots and lots of asphalt leads into metal shingle sales or metal roof sales. Now, think about this also, a little bit different way of thinking for some in the home improvement industry. How do most people pay for their new vehicles? With financing, right? In fact, in a typical year, 80% of all new car sales are paid for with financing. Only about 20% are cash deals. So if you're going to help more homeowners see the value of metal over asphalt shingles, you need to assume that the job's going to be financed. Increasingly, for successful metal roofing contractors, the percentage of finance jobs is approaching that 80% number, the same as vehicle purchases. So you want to have financing options readily available for homeowners, and you can also talk in terms of monthly payments, not total cost. If you go to buy a new car and the car salesperson talks about financing, that's a pretty safe assumption on their part that you're probably going to finance, and because that's how most people buy. And to boot, if you do happen to be that cash buyer, you're certainly not offended by them by telling them, "Oh no, we'll pay cash." Heck, if anything, you're a little bit proud of that. So again, a strategy for converting metal or converting more roofs to metal is to assume that it will be a finance deal, not a cash deal, at least until they tell you otherwise. Make it very natural for them to think of financing their roof, because after all, it is done all the time. What you're selling them is not a gallon of milk or even a new flat screen TV. It's a major home investment and improvement, and typically those are paid with financing. So I want to move on and talk a little bit more about your salesperson arriving at the appointment. First of all, it's important to have your salesperson do a little research on the prospect and have a good understanding of who this person is. You can learn a lot about most people just by Googling their names and address. Don't want to be creepy, but it's a good way to learn about people. You find out maybe what they do, how old are they, what hobbies, what do they care about, how often do they seem to change addresses. All of that is great information for your salesperson to know in advance. And in many cases, the appointment setter helps collect some of that information as well. Next, the salesperson needs to arrive early enough to drive around the house and look at other homes in the neighborhood. And I'm going to explain in a bit why that is so very important. It's critical that your salesperson arrives at the house in a vehicle that was described to the homeowner by the appointment setter. I encourage people to park on the road so that the homeowner can never think that you are the one who left oil stains on their driveway. You want to arrive on time, nicely groomed, professionally dressed. Again, you're there to help them see why they should buy a new roof instead of a new car, right? This is serious business. I suggest, you get out of the car, make a little wave up to the house. Even though you don't see anybody, make a little wave, because I guarantee you they're looking out the window watching for you. Right after you meet the homeowners, though, ask them if you can spend some time walking around the outside of their house with them. Maybe they can even hold the tape measure for you while you verify ground measurements. But ask them about their home and their current roof. What we find is you get people walking, their guard goes down a little bit. They're going to open up a little bit more. They're not going to be quite as guarded in the conversation if you get them walking while they're talking. We all struggle doing more than one thing at once. Take some pictures of critical areas of the roof, as well as areas of the roof that you see that are potential problems. You may very well end up showing them these photos later. Ask them to point out any concerns they have about the roof. You want to be sincere and honest and high integrity. But also you want to be a little bit realistic in terms of creating some urgency about taking care of the roofing problem before little problems turn into bigger, more expensive problems. Next, when you return to the home, you're going to ask them some basic questions and make some written note of their answers. And I really encourage you write down their responses. Yes, that keeps you from forgetting them, but just like a doctor sits there and takes notes as you tell them about every ache and pain, it shows that they care. And that doctor probably wouldn't have to write those things down. But you as the roofing salesperson want to be writing those things down as well to show that you care, that you're listening, that you're really want to know what's going on with their situation. Again, some of these things that the salesperson is going to ask will be things that the appointment setter maybe already asked and got answers to. But still, you engage them in that conversation and you help them to get emotional about finding a permanent solution to their ongoing problem of roofing. Again, write down the responses. Don't just sit there and say, yeah, uh-huh. So you're going to ask them some questions such as, how long have you lived in your home? What major improvements have you made? What major improvements do you dream of? Are you aware of any issues with your roof? How long do you intend to stay in this home? Will you someday sell the home, or do you think you might pass it on to relatives? These are all things to help you understand where their mindset is today. And then you're going to start the real needs analysis. This is where you begin to help them discover what they really do need, that they really do need to do something about their roof. So you're going to ask some questions like, do you have anything special in mind when you think of a new roof? Perhaps something to blend well with the rest of your home? What bothers you about your current roof? Do you feel your roof is secure if, let's say you have to go out of town for a few weeks? Have you ever considered how your roof might impact the energy efficiency of your home? Now, when we look into your attic, we're also going to be looking at ventilation. Do you have any concerns about the amount of heat buildup in your home? Any problems with condensation or ice dams on your roof in the winter? Do you think your current roof hurts the beauty and or value of your home? These are all things that you're going to ask. And um, if, as you talk about these things, it becomes apparent that you're asking things they've never really thought about, they've really never spent any time looking at or thinking about roofs, this is where your earlier drive around the neighborhood can come into play. For example, if you saw a house down the street that had a lot of fungus on the asphalt shingles, you can ask them if they've ever noticed that. The same thing goes for missing or curled shingles. Anything to help them think about the very real problems that can occur on their roof as well, just because they've seen them on their neighbors, is going to be very important to help them realize the ways in which roofs age and fail, especially since asphalt shingles are probably your main competition here. The next big step, and I think a lot of folks skip this after needs analysis, but I gotta tell you, I think it's the most important, is to help them set their criteria for choosing a new roof based upon what they just discussed with you. To do this, you're just going to talk through the questions, and each time they affirm that, yes, that's something we'd like with our new roof, write it down in your notes. So that may sound something like, so based upon what we just discussed, it sounds like you'd like to have a roof that is reliable and add some curb appeal to your home. Is that correct? Write down their response. And a roof that will last a very long time while reducing your summer air conditioning costs, that's something you would like too. Write down their response. And oh yes, the houses we talked about with all the black streaks and algae that make their roofs look old and ugly, you'd sort of like to avoid that as much as possible. And am I right that you'd really prefer not to have any ongoing maintenance costs? So you get them to affirm these things, you get them to, you write them down, and you're establishing their purchasing criteria. Anything that is a potential benefit to owning a metal roof in your area, you want to bring that up and ask them if that's something they'd like to for their home. Now, if they say no to any of these things, that's perfectly all right. Let's say that maybe they don't care about energy efficiency. That's fine. You write down, nope, don't care about energy efficiency. While we love the yeses, we very much want this to be an honest assessment of what they want to accomplish with their new roof. So once you've established and written down their criteria, which we will revisit later, the things they want to accomplish with their next roof, now's an ideal time to go up and do that attic inspection. And I don't have time today to go through the whole attic inspection process, but for most projects, this is a time where you really set some sense of urgency about their roof replacement. You're going to be taking moisture readings in their insulation and their framing. You're going to be looking for obvious roof leaks and mold or mildew or rot. You're going to be looking for decking areas that have high moisture content, which would indicate a probable leak. You're going to do a smoke pen test to verify airflow in the attic, make sure their ventilation is adequate and functioning. You're going to be looking at their intake and their exhaust vents, make sure that they're unblocked and they are functioning. Now, this is a great time too to get the homeowner involved. So you're up in the attic and maybe you're calling moisture readings down to them in the living space and asking them to write these numbers down. You want to get them engaged in understanding the condition and performance of their roof system. Never any harm in getting them to wonder, I wonder what these numbers mean. I wonder if that's a good number or a bad number, huh? So I want to take a moment here and step aside a bit. As their salesperson, you are not there to be their hero and to rescue them from their roofing troubles. You're here to be consultative, to be a reliable expert. You're here to help them discover the best solution for themselves and their home, whether that involves you or not. Now, Donald Miller, not a relative of mine, even though that was my dad's name, Donald Miller writes about this in a book called Building a Story Brand. And in this book, he talks about how to help the customer become the hero of their own story. You want to answer their questions and be their trusted expert, but to help them reach their own conclusion rather than force your thoughts and thoughts and opinions on them. And this is really critical for most salespeople. A lot of times what I find really kind of turns a light bulb on for salespeople is when they realize that they are there selling not for their own benefit, not to get that next deal or commission, but they're there selling for the homeowner's benefit. That's always a huge game changer. And that's why sometimes when we get in a sales slump, it's hard to get out of it, because the longer we're in that slump, the more desperate we get. But again, we got to take a step back, make sure that we're selling for the benefit of the consumer. Now, after the attic inspection, you're probably going to be back at their kitchen table. You're going to discuss various roofing options and whether those options meet their purchasing criteria that they established earlier. I can tell you right now, if they have any criteria at all, asphalt shingles probably are not going to be a good way to meet those needs. And as you do this, just as you ask them to affirm what they wanted to accomplish with their new roof, you get them to affirm that their various non-metal roofing options don't meet those needs, don't meet their established criteria. And that's really where the start of your formal presentation will be. And yes, I highly recommend a formal presentation. Many salespeople just want to wing it. There are some big problems with trying to wing it. One is that the guys who wing it invariably forget, or they skip over certain parts that they should talk about because they figure, well, they don't really want to hear about this, or maybe they just forget about it. The next is that everything, when you're just winging a presentation, everything you say becomes you talking. It becomes you trying to enforce your opinion on that consumer. You got nothing in writing. You have no third-party verification of what you're saying. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in today. People want reviews. They want to hear the opinions of others. They do not want to make purchase decisions, especially not big ones, just based upon what a salesperson tells them. A formal presentation allows you to interject the thoughts and opinions of others at the same time. Think back for a moment to that new car analogy. Would you ever buy a new car just based upon what the salesperson telling you what a great car it is? Of course not. You're going to research, you're going to read reviews, you're going to sit in the car, you're going to test drive it. In fact, you're likely going to listen to what you perceive as that salesperson's personal opinions very little, aren't you? Because you want the facts. You want factual information from others and from past customers. A formal presentation allows you to bring that in. It also dramatically lessens the training, onboarding, and ramping up of new sales team members. And if you're the company sales or company owner or sales manager, having a formal presentation gives you a way to make sure your salespeople are doing what they're supposed to be doing. For example, if the salesperson comes back and tells you the homeowners wouldn't buy, you can ask the salesperson if they really built the value by doing all the things in the presentation, or did they skip some things? Review the presentation with them step by step, seeking out what got missed or maybe shortchanged a little bit. Now, many quality metal roof manufacturers do offer formal in-home presentations that you can customize and use for your company. The platform today that I really like is something called Engage. I call Engage sort of PowerPoint on extreme steroids. Ask your supplier or manufacturer what sort of in-home presentation they have available for you to use. So to start your formal presentation, again, you're going to talk them through their various roof options. And those roof options are going to include asphalt shingles. You're going to talk about the pros and cons. You're going to show them problems, photos of problems with the various options, perhaps reference problems on these roofs you noted in their neighborhood or maybe on their own roof. And again, at the end of the discussion of each of these other product options, you say, well, does that product seem to fit your criteria of what you want to accomplish with your next roof? And let them answer. Again, make note, write down their answers. Your goal, of course, is to get them to say that the other materials do not meet their criteria. Maybe one of them does, and maybe you're not the product for them in that case. But assuming that a metal roof really is the best option for them. After you've gone through all these other options, you're going to say something about, well, let's look at metal roofs and see how well they meet your criteria. Then and only then have you earned the privilege to present the features and benefits of your product. A lot of people want to go in and they do what I call spill their candy in the lobby. They just start verbal diarrhea with all their benefits before they even know what the customer wants or needs. You have to first understand their needs, help them determine their purchasing criteria, and then look at all of their available options before you have earned the right to show them your product. So after you have presented the quality metal roof product you're selling, you can ask them to affirm, well, does this product seem to be the best of everything we've talked about? Does this seem to do the best job of meeting your purchasing criteria? If you've done your job well, they're going to say yes. If they say no, then you're probably not the product for them. And, that's quite all right. You're on to the next one. But assuming they say yes, this is where you then talk about roof warranties. You need to explain manufacturer product warranties and contractor workmanship warranties. You need to explain the differences. You need to explain things like proration and transferability. You need to talk about warranty coverages and limitations. You need to discuss how warranties that cover only failures caused by manufacturer's defects put the responsibility on the property owner to prove that their roof failed because that manufacturer did something wrong. Chances are it really did just wear out because of exposure to the elements. And here's why you need to discuss warranties. The asphalt shingle industry has created a situation where warranties seem to imply false life expectancies. That really isn't the case with most things we buy today. Think about cars or TVs or appliances. You buy a flat screen TV with a 90-day warranty, you still expect it to last long after 90 years. You buy a dishwasher with a 2-year warranty, fully expecting it to last 15 or 20 years. You buy that vehicle or that new truck with a 3-year warranty. You do not expect to be taking it to the junkyard after 3 years. But with roofs, we say that's a 40-year shingle. That's a 50-year shingle. Referencing the warranty, perhaps even implying that the product might last that long, but knowing full well it won't. You have to help homeowners understand that a warranty is really not a promise of life expectancy or performance. I'm going to say that again. A warranty is not a promise of life expectancy or performance. Instead, it's a contract. It says, in essence, if this happens, we as the warranty provider will do this. Long-term warranties play to the asphalt shingle industry's benefit in many ways. They confuse homeowners into thinking it's a promise of life expectancy. And the manufacturers also benefit from the fact that houses sell every few years and people lose or forget about warranties, further reducing the manufacturer's liability. In fact, to some degree, asphalt shingle manufacturers use warranties to create lifetime customers, recurring business. The product wears out, and perhaps they offer a small discount if you buy your next roof from them. Could it be that that discount, due to the warranty coverage, actually becomes a warranty or a marketing expense to bring in future business? Might be. Here's the reality of asphalt shingle warranties. If asphalt shingles truly lasted 40, 50, 60 years or more on a regular basis, the asphalt shingle industry would implode under its own weight. The infrastructure built for asphalt shingle production over the last 70 or so years has been about getting product close to consumers in order to reduce shipping costs. As a result, there are over 100 asphalt shingle production plants in North America capable of producing hundreds of millions of squares of asphalt shingles. If those shingles truly lasted 40 or 50 years, the industry would bankrupt under the weight of its own infrastructure. All those plants not having enough big enough market to support them. Most roofing contractors, they'll avoid discussing roofing warranties like the plague, but again, out of your desire to be different, to be transparent, to be different from the norm, you want to have a serious discussion of roof warranties shortly before you present your price, because this is a very impactful, and emotional part of your story. Again, you position it therefore right before you go to close the deal, or shortly before. Ultimately, you want to talk through the warranties offered on your product and your service and compare those to warranties on other products. Your manufacturer should be able to help you work through how to make those comparisons. In any event, do not shortchange warranty discussion. It's a critical differentiator for you and for metal roofing. There's one more thing, though, that you want to talk about before you discuss price, and that is your company. You talk about your company last because ultimately people are buying from you and your company, not product when they buy from you. This is pointed out by Jeb Blunt in his book, People Buy You. It's a great book. I highly recommend everything by Jeb Blunt. Talking about your company is the most powerful part of your time with that homeowner. And so you want to position it right before you close the deal. But just don't tell folks how great you are. That never plays well in this day and age. Instead, tell stories that demonstrate the ethos, the integrity, the credibility, the behavior of your company and its team members. Tell stories that show what you do when the rubber meets the road or when things get difficult even. Tell stories of your company's history, stories of integrity, times when you went above or beyond to do the right thing. Talk about your installers. After all, that's who these property owners will be living with during their project. They need to know that that your installers take their time, care passionately about quality, and are part of your local community. That they won't just disappear after the work is done. Show pictures of the members of your team with whom they're going to work and they're going to interact. This really is your time to not brag, but to tell stories that show by example and therefore prove that your company can and will meet their needs better than anyone else. Then and only then can you give your price proposal and value proposition. Ideally, at that point, you have built the value of your product and your service up to the point of where it exceeds the price you're going to quote. And again, assume this will be a finance deal unless they've told you otherwise. Now, might there be sticker shock when you give them the number? Absolutely. Of course, I mean, that's no different than when any of us buy a new car. We always get that final number and it surprises us. But here's where that purchasing criteria you help them establish comes to into play. They have already agreed upon what they want to accomplish with their next roof. So if they raise a price concern, you revisit that criteria and point out that this is the price they need to meet all their criteria. Is there anything perhaps they can live without in order to get a lower price? And sometimes there will be. Maybe they opted for a upgraded finish or some special, more decorative trim that, maybe that can come out of the deal to help bring the price down a little bit. Another great technique is to help them work through the numbers to evaluate their total cost or even their cost per year for an asphalt shingle roof compared to your roof. To look at those numbers, you'll ask them what they think the numbers will be in regards to future roofing prices, energy savings, and you're going to write them on this form that you're going to carry, much like this one I'm showing right here. I would start with something like, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, it's been my experience that roofing prices double about every 10 to 15 years. And really that's been accelerating lately with the skilled labor shortage and higher prices for labor. What do you think a new roof may cost you in 15 or so years? And then again, after that, use their numbers to build out this form and to show them the financial value of a quality metal roof. Figure in for energy savings, use this form to show them how a metal roof is their most economical way to roof. You can divide these numbers out even to show them a cost per year of their different roofing options. If they say they only intend to live there for 20 or 25 years, show what that means to them. Talk about the increased value of their home from having a quality metal roof. Talk about how a new asphalt roof doesn't really add value to their home. It only restores value that was lost from that home by having an aged and old roof doesn't add value. Every home has to have a roof, and asphalt shingles are just the bare minimum required to meet that need. They don't add home value the way that a permanent maintenance-free energy-saving metal roof will. So what you have just done through this sort of a masterful professional interaction with the prospect is switch their thinking on what a roof is and what it means to them. People pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on new cars, trucks, and other vehicles all the time because of what that vehicle transportation means to them. While we may grumble a little bit about new vehicle prices, we don't question that they are necessary expenditures. Or we do all we can to maybe justify that expenditure if it really is sort of a luxury vehicle, such as a summertime convertible or a Jeep for the weekends, that boat for the lake, or an RV that's just going to sit around like a paperweight most of the time. Your masterful presentation will justify the cost or monthly payment of a quality metal roof and turn that asphalt shingle lead into a metal sale again and again. So that is the end of my presentations. Here is my contact information. If you'd ever like to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to. If you connect with me, I can send you my Calendly link so you can schedule a convenient time that we could get together and talk. So, Kaylin, any questions?
We have had no questions come in. So while I'm doing the outro, everyone, if you do have questions that have come to your mind as this presentation has gone on, please feel free to pop that into that Q&A or into the chat window. I do have someone with a hand up.
Oh.
And I'm just trying to figure out who has their hand up here. Okay. Well, whoever has their hand up, please feel free to fill in a Q&A in the Q&A section of the screen. And if you have any questions, please feel free to notify us between now and the end of this, outro today. And if you have any further questions, again, you're more than welcome to reach out to Todd Miller directly, or you can reach out to me either at info@metalcon.com or to me directly at Kalyn, Kalyn, at metalcon.com. I want to thank everyone who is here today for joining us live. I want to thank everyone in the future who is watching this in a post-recorded session. Thank you for joining us there. I do have a question that has popped up. Any advice on homeowners who plan on selling in approximately 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you a quick story. My own parents, a number of years ago, they built a new house, and the house that they had originally lived in for many years had asphalt shingles on it. They were building a new house, so they had to sell that house. We did not put a metal roof on that house. We put asphalt shingles on it. So, in some cases, again, you're selling to benefit them. So you want to make the decision, help them, lead them to the decision that is best for them. But certainly for folks that are planning to sell that quick, you just got to look for their hot buttons. I mean, maybe they really care about the environment. Maybe they really care about buying a product that has recycled content and is fully recyclable. Maybe they really care about just simply making their home more energy efficient for future owners as well. You just got to look for those hot buttons, and sometimes you're going to find them. Frankly, sometimes you won't, and maybe metal doesn't make sense for that particular consumer.
Wonderful. We haven't had any other questions come through, so I'm going to wrap this up here with you, Todd. Again, thank you to everyone who has viewed this session either now live or in the future. And Todd, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to represent this session and for doing it in such a wonderful and eloquent way. We so appreciate your time, and we look forward to having you at a future MetalCon Live.
Sounds good. I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for all you do, Kaylin. We'll
you.
see everybody in Atlanta.
That sounds great. And thank you everyone for watching. Remember, February 21st is our next MetalCon Live featuring ANSI standards. And we hope to see you at MetalCon 2024 in Atlanta, Georgia, October 30th through November 1st. We'll see you real soon, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.